Well, hello and welcome to Talk Time. And this week promises to be a very, very interesting talk time. It promises to be interesting because of the guest we have. And it promises to be interesting because we are discussing manifestos. And we are talking about 2020 campaign for the December 7th election. Welcome to Talk Time. Hello and welcome back to Talk Time. And as I indicated, this is going to be perhaps one of the most exciting talk times. We are going to be talking about manifestos. We're going to be talking about the elections. We're going to be talking about everything election. And it is my pleasure, and indeed my honor, to introduce our guest for today, Dr. Hamid Mustapha, who is the Deputy Campaign Manager of the new Patriotic Party. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Doc, you've launched your manifesto. What are the essential elements of your manifesto?
Thank you very much once again. So first of all, our manifesto is basically in two parts. We took time in 70% of the manifesto to prove and show to the Ghanaian people what it is that we have done to fulfill our 2016 manifesto. And then the 30% part is the forward-looking part, what we promise to do in our second term in office, God willing, if we should get it. And why that is important is because we think that it is not justifiable for people to come to us and say we should renew their mandate when they haven't accounted for the first mandate that we gave them. And so in looking forward, we have titled our manifesto Leadership of Service, Protecting Our Progress, Transforming Ghana for All. First of all, because, so number one, so now to answer your question directly, what are the major planks of the campaign? Now, of the manifesto. So the number one major plank is that we are promising a leadership of service. A leadership of service meaning that we are planning leadership that puts the people at the center of governance, that we are going to work to fulfill the aspirations of the Ghanaian people. And what are the aspirations of the Ghanaian people? It is the aspiration of every Ghanaian that there is equal opportunity for all who engage their talents to be able to benefit from such talents, to be able to benefit from the goods that nature has bestowed on our country, and therefore for people to flourish in their family lives and in their personal lives. Now, how does that work? How that works is that you create a strong economy that allows people to have value for the goods and services that they generate or that they receive. Number two, for people who want to find jobs, to be able to find jobs because they have the talent for it. And that when they dress up every morning and show up at those jobs, that what they earn is enough to sustain them and their families. Number two plank is that we want to deepen the industrialization process of our country in order to become a net exporter rather than a net importer. And I'm sure for those who are economists, they tell us that it is this imbalance between import and export that is also responsible for the kind of currency that we have, the weakening of our currency against major currencies, etc., which creates problems for businesses and so on. Number three is that we want to continue to support industry in the sense that we want to continue to maintain power. Let the power be stable. Let people have power to power their businesses, small and medium scale businesses, barbers, tailors, etc., so they can benefit from their talent and from their work. Then agriculture. Agriculture is also important. We have started the Planting for Food and Jobs campaign. We started from 202,000 farmers. We are about Now, about 1.2 million farmers are enrolled on the program. Our projection is that we should be able to take it up to about 2 million farmers in the next 1 or 2 years that we get back into office. And then the last one will be education. In fact, President Akufo-Addo has constantly said that in his view, the only way that this country can be transformed and called a developed country is when we get everybody educated. That in the next 20 years, he wants at least every Ghanaian to have a senior high school certificate. So in other words, manpower development to power the developmental needs. So these are the, if you want, 4 or 5 major pillars of our manifesto.
Okay, so can we start from the very beginning? What have you achieved?
Okay, KP, when we inherited this economy from the NDC in 2017, January, and now all of us agree, whether you are NPP or anyway, you are CPP, so I can't talk for CPP, but basically NDC and NPP all say that the economy is the foundation for every other thing. In other words, that if we don't have a strong economy, then our country cannot make progress. At least the 2 major political parties agree on that. Now, if that is the case, then we are saying that the indicators that we inherited in 2017 were dire. Dire in the sense that inflation was hovering at almost 16%. We had recorded the lowest growth rate in this country in 10 years. That was 3.6% growth rates. We had barely 1 month of import cover, etc., etc. There was massive unemployment, leading to the creation of an unemployed graduates association, nurses who had been sitting out at home since 2013 because they were not engaged, and etc., etc. That's what we achieved. Now, I am glad to say that we have succeeded in, if you want, erasing that deficit. And then we have begun to make a lot of progress in that respect. Until COVID hit. So 2019, we were recording growth rates in excess of 7%, which is, if you want, commendable from the 3.6% that we took over from. Even in this COVID era, today, the latest statistics released by the Statistical Service shows that inflation is at 10%. The unemployment we have created in the last 3 years in excess of 3 million jobs, and we have put the breakdown of those 3 million jobs on page 9 of our manifesto. And so, power is stable now. We no longer have doomsaw. KP, there's an argument between us and the NDC. The NDC claimed that they resolved doomsaw before they left office. But I can show you the statistics of how many hours of darkness that Ghanaians suffered in 2015, in 2016, and in 2017 coming. And then you will see whether if by the time they were leaving office, doomsaw had been resolved or not. Doomsaw was very much with us until they left office. And so we have made that gain. In terms of agriculture, because in 2016, as recent as 2016, we were importing plantain from Cote d'Ivoire. Today, nobody imports plantain. In fact, we've become basically a net exporter of maize and plantain and so on. And so I think that in terms of all the things that we promised free SHS. We were told loudly that it was not possible until 20 years' time. We said that we could do it. They said that you couldn't do it until 20 years because you needed to build all the infrastructure before you start. And we said that no. We thought that you should start once you build the infrastructure to match the vision. And so free SHS is with that. It's become a reality. And I'm sure you've seen the testimonies of all these family people who are now saying that for the first time their children are able to cross over from junior high school to senior high school. And so I think that we've made a lot of gain in terms of health delivery. those days, I mean, people like you who are pundits on radio and so on would always say, oh, what kind of a country is this that you have only 55 ambulances to 30 million people and we can't even get a common ambulance? Anytime there's an infraction by a politician, you are like, why are they buying Land Cruisers instead of ambulances? And everything was in reference to ambulances. Now the ambulances matter has basically been resolved. Now there's an ambulance in every constituency. The next big push is what we call the Agenda 111, which is to have at least a district hospital in every district of our country. And so the nurses, the backlog of nurses who were sitting home since 2013 and not being engaged, all of that backlog has been cleared. Now they have been engaged. Because of free senior high school, we had to employ many more teachers in order to be able to run the double track system and etc. etc. So KP, I think that we have made some gain. We've moved our country forward.
Well, first of all, I want us to get the basics correct. The figures you are giving about the economic indicators you are giving, inflation and so on, where are those figures from? Now, I ask this question because we know that the economy has been rebased. So are you giving figures after the rebase or figures before the rebasing?
Kwesi Pratt, the current figures that everybody uses are the rebased figures, and so that's what it is. In any event, KP, all this jargon about rebased and not rebased and so on, in my view, is just for you and I who have been to school. Okay. The basic Ghanaian, the ordinary Ghanaian who doesn't care about economic theory and so on, who just wants to be able to survive, who wants to be able to earn an income that keeps him well, will testify that whether rebased or no rebased, in 2016, our economy was virtually in the ditch. And that the economy that we have today is a much sounder economy than the one that we inherited. So really and truly, all this rebasing thing, even for you and I who are educated, sometimes is very confusing to us. So I want us to deal with the basics of survival for the individual Ghanaian.
Are you therefore suggesting that the very indicators you used may not paint the true picture, and that the true picture lies in how the ordinary Ghanaian appreciates the situation?
Yes, at the end of the day, statistics is supposed, there's an adage or a saying in politics that people don't remember statistics, they remember stories. Okay, it's something that politicians bandy around. So why do people remember stories? Because it is the story of their lives. That's what is important. So yes, to an extent, the figures may not mean much if they are not translating into the everyday existence, the positive everyday existence of the people.
Agreed. Now, in opposition, you promised that you were going to reduce the country's dependence on loans. And actually, the sitting vice president described contracting loans as a lazy man's option. What is the situation today?
KP, I'm not totally with you or in agreement with you when we said that contracting loans were bad. We never said that. For the record,
the vice president
nobody said that. He's never said that.
Said it was the lazy man's option.
I don't know where you are quoting him from, but let me tell you what I remember him saying all along, which I have tapes on my phone that the former president Mahama was refuting, because we constantly said that we didn't see the value of the loans that the country was contracting. And you remember he came and said, then you guys must be sleeping if you say you don't know what we have used all these loans for, because he said that no government borrows without recourse to parliament, and that when you go to parliament you have to show item by item what you are using the borrowing for. So he says, if we are the same people who are sitting as a minority in parliament and approving these loans with the itemized bills and so on, why are we saying that we haven't seen a concrete manifestation of those loans, or that we don't know. So basically, we were saying that we didn't see a proper manifestation of those loans. And it is possible for people, for politicians to go to parliament, seek approval for loans, take those loans and misapply them. So a misapplication of loans is also possible. So even if we said that we didn't see a manifestation of those loans, we meant that we didn't see a manifestation. So as a country which is still grappling with making full use of its resources, I am not sure that we can completely do without borrowing. We would borrow. But I am saying to you that it is value for money that we always argued for.
Now, concretely, were the loans misapplied? The loans that the previous regime,
Yes.
contracted, were they misapplied? Do
Yes.
you have evidence to suggest that they were misapplied?
Okay, so for example, if you go and contract a loan and you say that you are going to do a Saglemi housing project, for example, and then Parliament approves it for you to the tune of, I think it was $200 million as against I don't know what the figures are, a certain number of houses, and then at the end of the day it is found out that you go and you reduce the number of houses that were supposed to be built, which Parliament approved of, and then yet the amount of money that was approved for Parliament stays the same. That is a misapplication of the nation's resources.
It's not a misapplication.
What is it?
Misapplication is where you take resources
Yes.
and divert them to another project. Not when you spend it on the same project.
Now,
That's misapplication.
so the rest of the money, where did they must have misapplied it, either in their pockets and wherever they put the rest of the money. Only God knows. They didn't apply all of the money to the project, so you have misapplied the money.
But
We didn't apply.
Dr. Hamid,
Yes.
this is speculation.
It is not. This is the Minister for Works and Housing has gone to Parliament and proved concretely that the number of houses that were originally approved by Parliament are not the number of houses that are there at
But
Saglemi.
that is not misapplication.
What is it?
Whatever you want to call it. But it's certainly not misapplication. Even if that were true,
Yes.
it would not amount to misapplication.
It will amount to not applying the full value of the money to what it is meant for. That's what I'm
It
saying.
will just mean that values change. Whether that was legitimate or not, we don't know.
Then they should have come back to Parliament. But moving even from there, the other thing that we have said about Circle Dubai, okay, how come that today, several years after Circle Dubai, another president and his government is able to construct, or is in the process of constructing, 4 interchanges at a value that is nearly the same as Circle Dubai? How is that possible?
I'm sure you've heard all the civil engineers and so on who have come out to say
And say what?
that is not how you calculate the value of projects.
How do you calculate the value
And
of
that the value of project
Yes.
is based on one,
Yes.
the topography of the area, is based on materials that we are using, is based on so many factors.
Yes.
And that, for example, if you look at what happened at Kwame Nkrumah interchange, just the depth of the area required steel beams, whereas the Ufanko interchange required concrete beams. And that variation itself can lead to substantial variation of cost.
So how come
These
then,
are civil engineers who are talking.
I'm coming. How come then that when the NPP came to power, Ofankor was going to be a 3-tire interchange? How come that the NPP was able to negotiate it into a 4-tire interchange at the same amount? How come?
Are you using the same designs? Are you sure that you're using the same
It's the same design. We have even added 1 layer. That's the point I'm making to you. So it just shows that there are a certain group of people, Kwesi, who
But
are
the
more
point you are making
committed.
about the renegotiation of the Franco contract
Yes.
is different from the point you are making about the comparison
I am
of the
giving
circle
you
interchange.
I am giving you examples of how, when people go and contract loans on behalf of this country, that they should apply them, one, for the purposes for which they apply them, number two, that they should apply them in a value for money manner, and then number three, that they should basically let the Ghanaian people get the true value of what they borrow. That's what I mean. That's the argument I'm making to you.
No problem. Are you aware
Yes.
that any loan has been approved by Parliament without a value for money audit? Are you aware of any such situation? Because my understanding is that the parliamentary procedure itself determines
Yes.
that any loan which is approved
Yes.
must have a value for money audit
Yes.
submitted to Parliament.
KP, I am sure that you know the basic, what shall I say, saying in Parliament, in our parliamentary democracy, that says that the minority would always have their say, but that the majority will have their way. So you may see things being approved and say, of course, once it is approved, it is Parliament that approves it. But the majority would often bulldoze their way through and push things through, even if the minority disagreed. And so people can come to Parliament, we will make all our arguments and say that this is not proper value for money. In the end, the speaker is going to say, those who say aye, those who say nay, say nay.
Is that happening now? Is the majority bulldozing its way today?
The majority always has its say. Yes, that one will be
So
part
is
of
it still happening?
Well, to a lesser extent, we are a majority that is more accommodating, in my view, of minority views than they were.
The U.S. military base.
Yes.
The minority walked out. You
Yes.
still approved it.
Yes.
A Japan deal.
Yes.
Minority walked out. You still approved it.
Yes.
PDS.
Yes.
Minority raised issues. You still approved it.
Yes.
Can I continue?
You can continue ad infinitum, but the point that has to be made is also that when we're passing NHIS, the minority walked out and we still approved NHIS. When President Kufuor said he had found oil, the minority protested and said it was agringo, and so on. So minority walking out of a matter does not necessarily indicate that there is no wisdom in that matter. Now everybody accepts the wisdom of national health insurance, and they themselves are beginning to add to it and say we will do this, do this, do this, but they walked out of it. Are you following me? They protested free senior high school, but free senior high school is operating and benefiting millions of Ghanaian children.
But, Honorable,
Yes.
as a fact, the minority did not walk out when it was declared in Parliament that we've discovered oil. One member of Parliament
Yes.
described what President Kufuor presented as adringo. One.
Oh, but they concurred it. His people concurred that it was a
should
dream.
we be judging your government by
Yes.
comments made by Kennedy Ohini Japan?
Kennedy Ohini Ejapo, where he goes and sits on his television station and makes a pronouncement, he's expressing his individual opinion. Kennedy Japan, if the same Kennedy Japan stands up in Parliament and makes an argument which goes into the Hansard, it counts as
An NPP position.
absolutely.
So when Isikwe
Yes.
stood up in Parliament and made the argument that mosquitoes don't need visas to enter Ghana and so on, was he speaking for the NPP?
But do mosquitoes
It
need
went,
visas?
it went into the hands of.
But do mosquitoes need visas?
So he
to
was
come
speaking
to-
for the NPP.
I'm asking you that do mosquitoes need
When he
visas?
called the NDC stealers, he was still speaking for the NPP.
KP,
Yes, sir.
KP, listen to me. I'm saying that people make, like for example, my good friend Kojo made a statement in Parliament. I mean, people berated him for those comments. He later came and said, Mr. Speaker, I want this comment expunged. Okay, so you can make a comment in Parliament.
But before he was expunged, he was speaking for NPP. When he referred to somebody as what would you say?
Papa knows a day.
He was speaking for NPP.
He was expressing his opinion. But if he had been allowed to stand, for all you know, it's the NPP people who pressured him and said, okay, let it go.
Okay. So I want us to dwell a little bit on the loans and so on.
Yes,
then
yes.
we can move from there to other things. What is the state of our indebtedness as a country today?
Well, the NDC and the opposition people are banding figures and saying we are in excess of 200 million or whatever figure that they are bandying about.
What is your figure?
Well, I don't have the current figures. I don't have the current figures, but whatever it is, yes, the truth is that ever since we came to power, we've borrowed some more.
Doubled the indebtedness.
Well, it may not be the way that you see it, because a lot of, let me tell you.
My source is graphic.
I understand, but the point I'm trying to make to you is that a lot of the loans that were contracted, especially in the first year of our governance, was to retire the debts that had been accumulated by the previous governments. So they were not loans that we took basically as addition, if you put it in net terms, to our loan portfolio, but we took them to cancel out other debts. But they count all of that and say, oh, you have borrowed or added on to the debt stock. But if you look at it in net terms, a lot of them have netted out previous loans.
But again, my source is the Daily Graphic. You're expending 3/4
yes.
of total national revenue,
yes,
plus grants,
yes,
on debt servicing and repayment of principals now. Unprecedented in our history.
I'm not sure that that is correct. This country has always spent huge percentages.
The Deputy Minister of Finance,
yes,
Honorable Dubois, actually puts it at 81.9% of total revenue plus grants. Graphic puts it at 3/4. So these are not my figures.
Yes.
And this is unprecedented.
KP, I don't know about unprecedented, but ever since I was a schoolboy and studying O-level economics, even though I'm a young boy, but this was in
You're not that young.
in 1987, when I wrote O-level economics, I was actually writing that this country is spending huge chunks of its revenue in debt servicing. Are you following me? And so spending our revenues in debt servicing is no new phenomenon.
1987, the figure was 67%
Exactly.
of total national revenue, excluding grants. That's the figure for 1987. You can check.
Okay, I'll check that. But Kwesi, the point, but you still agree with me that this so-called revenue to debt servicing business has been a business that we've been in for decades.
But we are reaching unprecedented levels. This country has never owned 250 billion Ghana cedis. We've never reached that level. In fact, the time that you came into office, our total indebtedness was 122 billion. Now it's 250 billion, more than double.
Now, what also the economists talk about debt to GDP ratio ought also to be factored in these matters, because the international community and international, if we call them lending institutions, would not borrow money to you if they find that your fundamentals are weak and that you do not have the capacity to borrow. So sometimes, or to repay actually. So sometimes borrowing, that it's also a sign of the confidence that the international community has in the management of your economy and the capacity of your country to be able to repay its money. Because see, when I was a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, I was receiving a salary of 4,200 cedis a month. Anytime I went to my bank, Absa Bank, which was Barclays then, to borrow. They never gave me any amount in excess of 30,000 cedis because they were doing it in relation to my loan. When I became minister and I was receiving 14,900 cedis every month, I went to the same Absa Bank in 2018 and they gave me 70,000 cedis. I have just 4,000 cedis of it left to repay. I'm sure at the end of this month, once they deduct, I would have paid. So how come that I am lecturer and they won't give me 70,000? And I am minister and they are giving me 70,000. It's because now I'm earning 2-3 times more than I was earning as a lecturer. So the point I'm also making to you is that your ability to pay would also determine people's confidence in you to be able to give you money to do the big things.
Partially. It's not the whole story.
What is the whole story?
For example, when your loans, the loans you are contracting,
yes,
are backed by sovereign guarantees and so on, you have a different situation. You understand?
Yeah.
Again, depends on the interest rate.
But since we came to government, the Minister for Finance and I has said clearly that we are not in the business. He will not issue sovereign guarantees to people because people abuse sovereign guarantees.
Not people. To international
yes,
financial institutions which are lending to the government of Ghana. That's different.
Yeah. But he hasn't issued sovereign guarantees,
okay,
has he?
I would accept that. Coming from you,
yes,
I have no problem. I have to accept that.
Yes.
Now we're talking about the loans.
Yes, yes,
you
please.
know, and how they are clogging economic development and so on. You also speak about creating 3 million jobs.
Yes, please.
Where are those jobs?
I'll read them briefly, I mean word for word for you to see. In the public sector, we've created 778,706. Formal private sector, 267,000. Government job creation programs, 1,008 and 365. And then we have all these NIEP, National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan. We have Ghana Commercial Agricultural Project. We have Planting for Food and Jobs. These are the places that we have created the things.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Let's take the public sector.
Yes.
Before you came into office,
yes,
public sector employees were 600,000. Those 600,000 public sector employees were consuming 70% of national revenue as emoluments. Okay. Now, if you have increased the number as you claim, where are you getting resources to pay them? Given the reality, 70% of total national revenue was going into paying 600,000 workers. Now you've added more than 600,000 workers. If even the pay remains the same, you need 140% of national revenue to be able to pay them. How are you able to pay them?
That also shows you that we have expanded the economy. Many people are making more money, and therefore they are paying more and more money.
Are you saying that national revenue has doubled since you assumed office? Are you confidently saying that?
I am not. It may not have doubled, but national revenues certainly, and I don't have the figures. So, but certainly we have collected more than the previous government was collecting, because we have plugged the lows because of all these programs that we have put in place that reduces human to human interaction in the collection, in the revenue collection processes. So we've been able to plug loopholes that has allowed us to maximize revenue collection.
Well, viewers, I told you it was going to be very, very exciting, and I meant it, because I've known Dr. Mustapha Hamid over a long period of time, and I'm quite sure that he's a very articulate gentleman. He says he's a young man, I doubt. But he's certainly a very articulate, minister. And he's the deputy campaign manager for the new Patriotic Party. We're going to go for a short break. And when we come back, we'll be raising more questions on the manifesto of the new Patriotic Party. Towards the end, we may want to do a comparison with the National Democratic Congress. So, short break. Well, hello and welcome back to Talk Time, and we are in a conversation, I think a very exciting conversation with the Honorable Dr. Mustapha Hamid, Deputy Campaign Manager of the New Patriotic Party, and also he happens to be a minister. And we've been talking about some of the achievements of the New Patriotic Party in relation to the promises that they made, before coming into office. Now, Doc.
Yes, please.
Is there any achievement of the New Patriotic Party you would like to highlight beyond the economy?
You know why I smiled? I know. I know why I smiled, because of course I'm going to talk about free SHS. And that's because opponents of our party say, for NPP people, when you ask them about cocoa, they say free SHS. If you ask them about Kose, they say free SHS. Free SHS is their answer to everything. But you see, the reason I say free SHS is because I have said again and again that if in 20 years, actually, to quote the president precisely, he actually talks about a generation, but people say that a generation is normally between 20 and 30 years. So if within a generation, we can get all our population educated, minimally at least senior high school, I think that it will be one big leap forward for the development of our country. Because it is very clear, KP, that from Kofi Bentil calls them our envy list, Ghana's envy list, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, all of these people. They were able to do this because of the eradication of illiteracy, poverty, and disease. And free senior high school is one major step in that direction. There's this woman, I will get her real name, who is a charcoal seller in Ashaiban, whose son is one of the children that we have sent on this Zongo scholarship program to Cuba, who are going to do medicine, those 40 Zongo youth who are in Cuba now and doing medicine. She was selling the charcoal with her mother because she had dropped out of school and was unable to proceed. So when we use free SHS even as an answer to a question on cocoa, it is relevant to cocoa because if you are able to go to school and realize your potential, you can buy cocoa for your family. But there are families today that are unable to buy cocoa because they don't have educated people who have the resource to be able to take care of them. So free SHS will be my number one if you ask about our achievements in government. I will put free SHS 1, 1, and 1 again.
Have there been implementation problems, difficulties? The idea is there. Have there been implementation problems, difficulties?
Of course. In the first year of its implementation, we saw pictures of children who had to sleep on verandas, and where for going to dining hall, the school was virtually divided into two. People would go and eat and come. And so immediately there was an explosion. And that explosion in numbers created all these difficulties in terms of where children will sleep and where children will eat and so on. And that's why in the second year of its implementation, we brought in the double track system to be able to ameliorate those difficulties. So yes, there were infrastructure challenges which resulted in grave difficulties for the initial implementation of the program.
Are there not infrastructural problems still?
There are infrastructural problems, and that is why we said that the double track system, we've given it basically maximum a 5-year lifespan, that within the next 5 years we should be able to eradicate the double track by aggressively pushing increased infrastructure in these schools. To date, the Minister for Education tells me that there are 804 projects that have been completed across the landscape in these institutions. My own school that I attended, Boku Secondary School, that's where I did O-levels from 1 to from 5, just received its mandate, or if you want, go ahead from the Ministry of Education to go off double track. So many schools are going off double track once the infrastructure comes up to scratch. So we are aggressively pushing the infrastructure thing, and once that is done, all of these schools will go off the double track.
haven't the implementation difficulties affected quality of education?
No. If you ask me, I would define quality education as basically the quality of tuition, teaching, man hours, interaction, learning, resources, as in books, learning resources, that's what I mean. So let me just call them learning resources generally. So access to learning resources, access to the requisite number of teachers, as in getting the right ratio between teacher-student, getting the right teacher-student ratios, and then number 3, the quality of curriculum that is put. These 3 put together would give you the quality of the education that is in place.
Number of hours of instruction.
Yes.
Number of hours of
instruction. Yes.
And even to some extent, absorption rate. Are they not part of the definition of quality?
I don't understand absorption rate. Can you explain?
For example, if you have a class of 120,
yes,
the absorption rate is said to be lower than if you have a class of 60.
Okay, which is what I also put in another language and said teacher-student ratios.
It's true, it's part of it, but there are other ingredients.
Exactly. But I'm saying
ambience and so on, they're all part of the ingredients of absorption.
Exactly. So if the classroom is crowded, certainly the environment becomes, as we said, or let's use your word, the ambience becomes inappropriate and therefore could affect the quality of absorption and etc. etc. And so I am saying to you that in the first year, those challenges occurred. But we moved immediately to resolve those challenges with a double track that significantly reduced the numbers and maintained the normal ratios that we had even with in the pre-double track era. You get the point. So if a certain school was admitting 700,
the double track system itself,
yes,
not a challenge, because it reduced the hours of instruction, it reduced the days of instruction, didn't it?
But we have increased hours of instruction. We have increased hours.
How is that possible when children are sitting home for 3 months?
Oh, but when they come back, others also go. You see, if you net it out, maybe you should have a proper conversation with Educhum. If you net all of this out, you come back to the same.
I'd like to have Napo on the show.
Of course, he's the minister.
My brother Napo on the show.
Of course, he's the minister. But KP, what we did was that we decided that because of double track, because people will be sitting home for a while and others will go and so on and so forth, that we should increase the number of contact hours. So hitherto, if classes closed at 2 p.m., now they would close at 4 p.m. So the number of hours has increased. And when you put all that number of hours together, it nets out in terms of days that they used to spend versus the number of days that they spend now. Because it is hours that make days. So, for example, if I say in the university we have what we call credit hours. If you have a 3-hour, 3-credit course, what it means is that contact between you and the teacher is for 3 hours in a week. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I go, those days that I used to sleep in Accra and go and teach in Cape Coast, sometimes I go and I stand on my feet in 3 hours stretch and I finish my lessons and I come back to Accra and I don't have to go again until the following week. I could also go Monday and do 1 hour, go back Tuesday and do 1 hour, and go Wednesday and do 1 hour. So really, it is the hours that make days. So if you are increasing the contact number of hours, then when you put it in net terms, it will be the same as the number of days that they used to spend previously.
But if the double track system
does
not present as a hindrance, as a problem, why do you want to change it?
First of all, it's a psychological problem.
Psychology is a problem.
And psychology, psychology is a problem. You see, it's just a psychological problem in the sense that, the fact that parents feel that their children are not in school for a certain number of weeks or days as it was previously. Psychologically, it produces a challenge in the minds of the people and unsettles them a bit, and they think, oh, it means that the quality is reduced. But as I have just explained, once you increase the number of hours, you net it out in terms of the days. But so you don't even want that challenge in the minds of people, the perception that the double track is reducing the quality. So definitely you would want to scrape it off. But Kwesi, let anybody tell me that they could have implemented free senior high school without this challenge. There is no government, and that is why the NDC was categorical that they didn't think that it was time for us to do it, because they knew that once you do it, there'll be an explosion in the numbers, and when there's an explosion in the numbers, you won't have infrastructure. But the universities are running a quadruple track, Kwesi, quadruple track, because numbers of people going to universities have also exploded. When I was in university as recently as 1996, when I finished my first degree, I was sleeping in a single room in Kesley Hayford Hall, all by myself, me alone, room 209. I slept in it for a whole year. Some people even slept in single rooms, level 300 and 400. Now, that same room in Kesley Hayford Hall, I visited it recently, and there are 4 people living in that small cubicle that I lived in alone. So numbers have exploded. So universities have been innovative. Now they run the Roma shift. They have evening classes. They have sandwich. Okay, and they have distance learning. There's a quadruple track because of numbers. So if numbers have exploded, there ought to be an innovation to accommodate that thing. And that's why we brought double track. So rather than berating us for double track, I think that Ghanaians should be clapping for us for that innovation.
One village, one dam. How has it gone?
The 375 dams are in active operation. That's what the Chief Executive of Northern Development Authority, Dr. Anam Zoya, tells me. And so it is going well, and I have seen...
And you believe him?
Oh, Kwesi, why I shouldn't believe him? He's the implementing agency sitting there in the northern part of the country and running the program.
You know the northern part of this country very well.
Yes, I came from Tamale 1 week ago or something.
So on your rounds, what have you seen? Does it tally with what the chief executive is telling you?
I certainly cannot visit all 370 to physically ascertain
that you have visited.
Yes, but the dams are there.
I'm sure you've seen the videos of the chiefs of communities coming up to say that, look, what we have are not dams, they are dugouts. When it rained, there was some water in it. After the rains, all the water is gone. You've seen those videos.
KP.
If you haven't, I'll send them to you.
I would like to see them.
Chiefs.
I would like to see them, first of all.
Are you saying that you haven't seen them?
But let me make a point.
Have you seen them?
I have. The ones that I have seen, and the one that I can play to you now, is the one that I've seen also of testimonies of people who are showing us the dams in their villages that are working, that is watering their animals and so on. I have also seen that one.
The Deputy Minister for Agriculture, I forgot what his name was, one of the Deputy Ministers and so on, actually stood in front of Parliament House.
Yeah.
And said that it was impossible to give every village one dam. And that there was a variety of things that they could be given to the villages: dugouts, boreholes, dams, and so on. And he listed the categories. That's your deputy minister
KP.
For agriculture.
KP, you know what? You see, you and I, we've been to school and we have all these pens in our pockets and so on. So
I have only one pen.
So we know terminology and we know the definition of what, properly speaking, is called a dam and so on. But when the northern people, where I come from also, say that they are looking for a dam, they don't mean the book definition of dam. For them, a large receptacle, collection, exactly where water collects for them to water their plant, is called a dam. That's how it is called in the whole of the upper east and northern regions. They call it a dam. So why are you doing theory?
But when we are writing official documents,
yes,
when we are writing manifestos,
yes,
when we are sending proposals to Parliament and so on,
yes,
we are supposed to use the right language.
And the right language is F dams. We said that we are doing F dams, small F dams. That's what we are doing. That's what they are called.
But you're aware that some of the villagers are complaining.
Yes.
You are aware.
Oh, KP, you are going to do 375 dams or F dams as we properly situate it, and not have one or two of them dry out. KP, there's a book I'm reading called The Perils of Perception. Perhaps later I'll let you have a look at it. It's akin to the situation that occurred during when President Akufo-Addo said the students should go back and write their examinations. When there were 6 cases of COVID at Accra Girls, there was a huge outcry. Let us close down the schools, as if Armageddon was about to happen. Normally, one negative news, as an experienced journalist, I'm sure you teach your children that when a dog bites a man, it is no news. But when a man bites dog, that is news. So really and truly, 1 or 2 mishaps in a project like dam and thrown into the social media space can make it look like the failure of the entire system. But that is not the case. You will have casualty rates in every war situation. You will have casualty rates.
Your minister responsible for the construction of the dams was questioned about the quality of the dams.
Yes.
He said, this is all the money we got. Now with the money we got, this is what we can do. I'm sure you heard that.
Yes.
What does that translate into? An admission of the fact that what was promised was not what was being delivered.
Not exactly. What she meant was that she's produced these dams, and you are saying, we the book-long people are saying to her, but this is not the definition of a dam,
no,
and so on.
The villagers.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It is you and I who were saying that, because we have gone to school and learned book. So that's what we were saying. And she said to us that we set out to do small F dams. We didn't set out to do a bui or an akosombo. And so the budget that we have is budget that is enough to create the kind of dams that we set out to create, which is what we have created. I'm not sure that there is anything fundamentally wrong with that statement.
What about one district, one factory?
KP, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which is responsible for running the 1D, 1F program, tells us that 78 factories are, some are complete, some are just being completed, and some are at various stages of completing. So, yes, per the statistics that we have, 78 projects are off the ground.
Out of?
If you say 1D, 1F, I mean, really, that would have been in excess of 200, ideally. But KP,
only 78 are in varying stages of completion.
Do you remember that when I was Minister for Information, I said something on a sister station that many people misunderstood? I was asked that, do you think that by the end of your tenure, your first mandate, that you would have done a factory in every district? And my answer at that time, which hasn't changed even to today, is that the 1D, 1F vision is not a vision that is tied to a 4-year mandate. That is not what we envisage. We were just saying to you that this country is just like the free SHS we say within a generation. It didn't mean that once you implement free SHS in 4 years, every Ghanaian was going to have an SS certificate. In the same way, we say that we want this country to have one district, one factory. We didn't say that all of those factories will be done within our first 4-year mandate. We never said that. Number 2, it is not even possible for us to have said that because it is a private-public partnership. If you float the idea of a factory in Golu and private investors are not coming, how are you going to, by all means, ensure that the factory in Golu happens now? You would have to coax and cajole people over a certain period, put in incentives, go and do that before people go to Golu. So we never said that in 4 years we were going to do one district, one factory. We said that the vision for this country should be one district, one factory. And that vision is very much on course.
What about $1 million per constituency?
The IPEP projects are also all over the place.
Are you saying
Yes.
that since you came into power,
Yes.
every year
Yes.
you have spent $275 million
Yes.
on the development of constituencies?
KP, I'm saying to you that we can do the mathematics, but we said that we would invest this much in constituency to ensure infrastructure projects, mainly water for all, toilets for all, just basic, the bareness, to ensure that every constituency has the bare necessities for making life minimally comfortable. Whilst you may not have every constituency have it at $1 million exactly, but at least every constituency has those basic men, including the one ambulance, one constituency. It's all part of the accumulation of the $1 million per constituency project. So it is very much on course. But to sit down here and tell you that I'm going to be able to calculate that in a Jumako, Enyan, Esian, when I add the cost of the toilet that we have put, the cost of the water, the cost of the ambulance, it has come to 1 million. That would take me a long time to be able to calculate. But I can tell you that vision and that commitment is very much on course. And the projects are springing up in our constituencies.
From the evidence, budget statements and so on, not even half of that money has been spent.
How do you come by that conclusion?
The appropriations, if you can check, you know those things better than I do. Are you arguing that you spent in excess of $400 million on constituency development?
Kwesi, I just told you that you will not be able to get figures for all the constituencies to be the same. I mean, some are at a more advanced stage than others. Some have gotten more so far than others. But the commitment it's being done.
Okay. Is there any other achievement that you would like to talk about before we move into comparing the two manifestos?
Well, it may be a dereliction of duty if I didn't use my last opportunity for achievement to talk about the sector that I am in.
No, this cannot be your last opportunity.
No, in this interview.
Anytime you want to come and talk about NPP and its achievements, the cameras and the microphones are yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But for today, you said we should talk about one last achievement before we go. So I just meant to say that I should say Zongo. Okay. You know, otherwise somebody watching will say, okay, but he's Zongo minister. So what is the accounting for the Zongo thing? And in envisaging that question will be asked, I brought a compilation of what I call update on progress of work. 2018 to 20, a whole book.
Blue book.
I like that. You can call it the Zongo Blue Book then. The Zongo Blue Book. And this is, and I say 2018 because that's when I came to the ministry. I came there on the 10th of August 2018 to 2020. And we've done massive projects across the country. You see, we list the Zongo community, the water project, ICT laboratory project, AstroTurf facility, classroom blocks. I mean, we've done this. These are drainage projects that we did in Medina Zongo and so on. Kwesi, I want to say that as far as the Zongo development project is concerned, it is one of the achievements that we certainly can talk about, because these Zongo communities and inner cities are communities that have lagged behind in terms of these amenities and infrastructure, especially in relation to the education of its people. You know, because secular education was brought by Christian missionaries. For a very long time, these Zongo people refused to send their children to secular schools for fear that they will convert to Christianity. So for several decades, this lack of enthusiasm to go to school has put the Zongo people behind in terms of educational attainments. And so that is why we are investing more in education. all the scholarship schemes. The Zongo Development Fund is paying for a number of students who are in various universities studying, including somebody who is doing his PhD, a Zongo boy from Temazongo who is in Legon doing his PhD, the 40 youth who are in Cuba now doing medicine, and etc., etc. So really and truly, I would say that the Zongo Development Project is one of the projects that the visions of Akufo-Addo that are allowed, because it will help to reduce the inequality between a certain section of our population and the rest of it. And I think that I'm proud to be associated with this project.
Well, viewers, we are talking to Dr. Mustapha Hamid, Deputy Campaign Manager of the new Patriotic Party. I'm going to take another short break. Now, when we come back, I'm going to ask him to do a very difficult exercise. Compare the NPP manifesto to the NDC manifesto. Short break. Hello, welcome back to Talk Time, and Talk Time is getting exciting. It's getting exciting with Dr. Mustapha Hamid, Deputy Campaign Manager of the new Patriotic Party. Now, sir, would you like to compare the manifesto of the NDC and the NPP?
The only comparison that I would love to make is, first of all, to say that we believe that our manifesto has better believability than the NDC manifesto. Why do I say so? We did a manifesto tracker both for ourselves and for the NDC's 2012 manifesto. We came to the conclusion, or to the realization from what the analysis that we made, that the NDC was able to fulfill only 33% of its 2012 manifesto commitments. We have argued, have put it out, that in terms of what we have delivered and what we are delivering cumulatively, we are doing 78% of our manifesto, 2016 manifesto commitment. So first of all, on that score, we believe that we have better believability. Our manifesto for 2020 has better believability than the manifesto of the NDC.
Well, Mr. Minister, you know,
yes,
that is self-praise. In English language, it is called self-praise.
Self-praise based on evidence is acceptable. Self-praise just for sake of what somebody calls self-aggrandizement is not acceptable. But if you are making such comparison on the basis of fact, then it is irrefutable. Look, 2012 manifesto of NDC. Item 1, we shall achieve an average GDP growth rate of at least 8% per annum. You and I know it didn't happen. Achieve a single-digit rate of inflation. You and I know it didn't happen. Achieve an overall budget deficit equivalent to 5% of GDP. It didn't happen. Achieve gross international. I'm just reading just the first 5 items only. And they all didn't happen. Are you following me? So when I say that ambulance service is all here, we shall retool the ambulance service. All of the things that they said they would do, they didn't do. Kwesi.
Have you seen the Ghana Web pool?
Yes.
On which of the manifestos is believable? Have you seen it?
I don't know that they've done it.
I looked at it yesterday.
And what do they say?
NDC is scoring 64% or thereabout. NPP is scoring 30-something%.
And you believe that web polls are representative? You see, even me, I haven't seen it. Web polls are representative of the opinions of the Ghanaian people.
I'm just asking if you have seen it.
I haven't seen it. But the poll is still running.
As at yesterday, I thought it had closed.
Well,
but
whatever.
In any case, that's an independent organization. That's not an NDC surrogate, is it?
No, of course it's not.
And it's certainly not an NPP surrogate.
It's not.
So in terms of believability,
yes.
which one would you believe?
I believe
an MPP.
You see, Kwesi,
conjured statistics,
Kwesi,
or the results of a Ghana Web pool.
Oh, if it's the result of a Ghana Web pool, so be it. But the point I'm making to you is that, first of all, I mean, everybody knows, including you, that web polls are not really representative of what happens, because you'd have to talk about people who have access to a computer, data, a smartphone, etc., etc. So it's a skewed poll. So really, it doesn't say much. But the point I am making to you is that the Akan people say that aye bida and your friend aye boaf. The one that has done it before is the one that we call a doer. It's as simple as that.
Are you going to insist on this?
Yes.
Because under the NDC,
yes,
we've had a growth rate which was the highest in the world.
At a point.
So aye bida.
At a point.
Aye bida.
Yenimuno is the one that we took over from. We took over 3.6. We didn't take over the oil boom.
That's a difference.
And the mills, we just pumped out oil, and Ghana became an attractive how people run where we just started to of course, at that point the oil resources would escalate. So did you hear President Mahama? I'm sure since I've been saying it yesterday, NDC people have been countering me and say, oh, he really meant the 29 economy. But did you hear him say at their manifesto launch that I was bequeathed a very wretched economy, like an economy that was going down the hill? And I said, but who bequeathed an economy to Mahama? We didn't bequeath an economy to Mahama. It is Mills that bequeathed him an economy. So basically he's saying that the Mills economy was nothing to write home about. Now they are trying to make excuses and say, oh, he didn't mean, but he said that I was bequeathed. He, as Mahama, he didn't say that the NDC was bequeathed.
Massa.
Yes.
You politicians and your games.
Yes.
You know that under President Mills, he was head of the economic management team.
Who?
Former President John Dramani Mahama. You know that.
Yes. But he was not in charge of this country.
He was in charge of the economy.
He was not in charge of this country.
Agreed, but he was in charge of the economy.
So he couldn't have said that he was bequeathed an economy. He couldn't have said that if he meant the one that was bequeathed him by President Kufuor. In any event, let's move forward. You say that
the comparison.
Yes, I should do the comparison. Many of the things that the other day I was on another station with Sam George, and he ran, in his view, the 10 big things that they say they will do, and he mentioned abolition of Customs Act, he mentioned double track, he mentioned primary health care, some 10 items. And I sought to point out that all the 10 items that the NDC is listing as the plank of their manifesto are things that are already being done by the NPP. There's not one that is not already being done. So really and truly, there's nothing basically that they are coming to do. If you say you will come and abolish double track is already being abolished. As indeed I have shown. I don't know other schools, but I know my own school, Baku Secondary School, in which double track has been abolished. So abolishing double track is already being done. Why would you want to come and abolish something that is already being abolished?
If it's being done, it has not been done.
But you have to keep striking out until you get zero.
Yeah, but being done and has been done are two different things. I get you.
But are they going to be able to, in the unlikely event of winning in January, be able to come in January and say double track is abolished? All these 2,000 students in St. Rose's Secondary School, and I say St. Rose's because my daughter is there, that my daughter and all her cohorts in green and they should all come and crowd up in the school. Is that how they are going to do it? It's not possible. So again, as the question is the point I'm making to you, they think that people believe it, but people don't. People don't believe that you can just come and then say that everybody should come to school. Where are they going to say it?
Yesterday, I also came across an analysis of the manifesto of the NPP and the NDC done by the Law Students Union. I'm sure you've seen that.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that.
They said that the NDC manifesto is more believable than your manifesto when it comes to solving the problems of law students. Because
that is what they want to hear. You see, if you say believability is what people want to hear, then it's another matter. But what people want to hear is different from what is doable. Look,
why are you honorable? Why are you downgrading the views of the Law Students Union?
I'm not downgrading their views, but they know they know that they petitioned President Akufo-Addo in 2019. President Akufo-Addo received their petition, told them that per the laws of our country, a president cannot issue a fiat determining how law education should be run, and that the General Legal Council, the thing is in the bosom of the Chief Justice and the General Legal Council. Nonetheless, as president, I will make a representation of your views to the General Legal Council for consideration of the matter. And indeed, he wrote, and I have a copy of the letter, it was public knowledge, gave the law students copy, and encouraged the General Legal Council to look at the petitions of these students and address their needs in such a way that, I mean, we open access to legal education. That's what is going to be done. Even if the NDC came to power, they are not going to be able to overrule the General Legal Council and say, to hell with General Legal Council. We have given accreditation to all universities to run a professional law program. First of all, do you know the recent audit that was done even on the law faculties showed that my own university, a reputable university like University of Cape Coast, that 40% or so of the lecturers who are teaching law in University of Cape Coast do not even qualify to teach the law. So with so many other of these laws. So even if the faculties do not have enough lecturers, how is the NDC going to be able to wave a magic wand and get accreditation to all schools to run a professional law program and get the qualified lecturers all in one go to be able to run it? It is not true. They would have to go according to law and appeal to the General Legal Council as we have. So we are more realistic in tackling the problem. What they are saying, as I said, is sweet. I mean, people will hear. But the truth of the matter is that the law students know that it's not going to be done that way.
But Honorable, you would appreciate the fact that ultimately,
yes,
it is the Ghanaian people who will be the judges in this matter.
Yes.
And their judgment appears to be clear.
Yes.
At least with regards to the law students.
Yes. That
you and the law students, who is the judge? You are a litigant like the NDC. The judge is the law student.
Yes.
And they have taken their decision.
Well, I don't know if they have taken their decision. I've seen the statement issued by their leadership. I am not sure that the rank and file, every single student accedes to everybody who is seeking to enter law school tomorrow. If they were going to put a ballot box, every single one of them is going to vote NDC. It is not true.
The manifesto you launched,
yeah.
Are you sure that every single member of the NPP thinks that this is a good manifesto?
Yes.
You are sure?
Yes.
You are sure?
Yes.
Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo is not a member of your party?
No, he's not. He's no longer. But this man
have you sacked him?
Have you heard him from 2016 to date?
It doesn't matter. Is he a member of your party or is not?
He's been suspended by the Greater Accra branch since 2016.
But he's still a member. Suspension is not dismissal.
Well, but he's vehemently opposed to Akufo-Addo. You know that. Vehemently. And he has said so publicly. Held press conferences in 2016 saying we shouldn't vote for Akufo-Addo. He's a dangerous human being and so on. So if he disagrees with Akufo-Addo's vision, it's okay.
I've heard him at least on 3 occasions very, very critical of your party and its policies.
Even when he was in parliament, he did that.
But he's still a member of your party.
Yes.
So you don't have to have every single member of the Law Students Union
yes.
agreeing to what the leadership has put out.
Well, KP, that's why you've given me this opportunity to make a clarification and, if you want, an appeal to the law students. That as law students, it is important that they look at the substance of our arguments. I want to say our, I mean the NDC and the NPP, rather than the form of it. The form may be flowery and something, what the street people call paintinamento. You know, they may have painted something for them to buy. But I'm saying that they may be sourly disappointed if, in the unlikely event that NPP, NDC won power, for them to realize that, oh, apparently we have to go through the same legal steps to be able to do these reforms and so on. It's not as if that any president can wave his hand. They would come to the realization in the unlikely event that the NDC won. So I'm telling them that if they would come together around the table with us who have the mandate now, for us to all follow the procedure and do what is right in getting the right reforms, it will benefit us than the populism.
What about the legalization of Okada?
Legalization of Okada, the transport minister has said that already nationwide consultations have been going on for God knows for several months now. Some preliminary document has been done, and so when the consultations are concluded, and the people who are being consulted, as in the ordinary Ghanaians, Okada operators, taxi drivers, etc., etc. If it is complete and the conclusion and the consensus is that it should be legalized, it will be legalized. But again, we are not going to make a promise based on him. Just like that, populism. Oh, Okada people say, oh, we should legalize. Okay, we'll legalize Okada. Our law school say, look, grant accreditation to so many. Okay, we'll grant that. Just, every Facebook chatter, street chatter, we just take it and put it together as a manifesto. I don't think that that's the way to run a country.
So you're saying that it is possible that in the final analysis you will agree with you may agree with the NDC that Okada should be legalized?
Oh yes, if the consultations that are going on come to that conclusion. After all, they made it illegal in the first place. You know that. They did. They passed LI 2180 in 2016, making it illegal. It is their Minister for Transport, Jiffa Ativo, who directed the MTTD to arrest every person who was operating Okada, not us. So if there are any people who have put Okada people in this predicament, it is the NDC. So really, it has nothing to do with us. But we say that we are taking a more sober view of the matter, and then trying to reform, look at the thing, and get it done in accordance with the aspirations of the people.
Well, viewers, we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, I would invite the Honorable Minister and Deputy Campaign Manager for the new Patriotic Party to venture into prophecy. Short break. Well, hello and welcome to the last segment of this interview. This conversation with the Honorable Dr. Mustapha Hamid. Now, sir, some prophecy. Who is going to win this election?
Yes, I know when you say prophecy, that's what you meant. Akufo-Addo is going to win. Okay. And I'll say that, of course, I'm sure somebody watching us will say, but of course, he's deputy campaign manager and he's fighting for Akufo-Addo to win. So why is he going to say that Akufo-Addo is going to win? But I say that maybe let me just give 3 reasons. One is that throughout this morning, I have been trying to show that we have done well for the Ghanaian people. And I believe that puts us in good stead to win. I've tried to prove that the main opponent, candidate Mahama, hasn't shown by his conduct in office and off office that he has a principle and he has focus. We have described him as a flip-flop, somebody who changes his mind and follows the wind. Today, GHS is not good. Tomorrow, I'll maintain it. Teachers' allowance is not good for education. Tomorrow, I will maintain it. The nurses' allowance is not good. Tomorrow, I will maintain it. Okada is banned. I will restore it. When you are flip-flop, people don't see. People want a leader who is resolute, who has principle and plays by those principles. So on that score, I think that between Akufo-Addo and him, Akufo-Addo is seen more as a man of conviction than John Mahama. So he'll win on the basis of that. Then the third one is just wishful. It's quite wishful, but it's also quite scientific, not absolutely scientific. That since 1992, every party has had at least its first term mandate renewed. In other words, NDC did 8 years, NPP came and did 8 years, NDC came back and did 8 years. I believe that on the basis of that, the Ghanaian people will say, so far so good, they are not there yet. Let's give them another mandate and let them complete what they have started. On these 3 reasons, I believe that Akufo-Addo will be declared victor in December.
If your prophecy becomes like all the other prophecies of all the other prophets, many of them, and you lose the elections, will you walk out of office gracefully?
Oh, I always tell people that if there was anybody to disrupt our democratic practice by refusing to hand over and so on, it would have been Jerry Rawlings. Once Jerry left office, I don't believe that any other person has the muscle and the machinery to be able to hijack this democratic process and stay in office. So we would.
That's an interesting point. What have you guys managed to do to keep Mr. Rawlings in your corner for so long?
I don't know what has been done. I guess that it is because looking at, like I said, his candidate, his own party's candidate and our candidate, he just has the belief that our candidate has more conviction than his own candidate. And so he decides that he will support our candidate, even against his own candidate. That's all I think.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for coming. Well, viewers, we've been in a conversation with the Honorable Dr. Mustapha Hamid, a very good friend of mine. I've known him for many years, and I'm happy to be the guy who is interviewing him today. I do hope that all of us have learnt a thing or two from this conversation, and I'd like to urge all of you to keep watching Pan-African television, because as I always say, the best is on Pan-African television. From the director of the show, I suppose, is Adam Lumo, from the cameraman, from the makeup artist, from all of us at Pan-African television, we'd like to say goodbye to you. See you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.